She never missed a morning. Not when the air tasted like rain. Not when her cough echoed too long in her chest. Not even when one of the dogs limped slightly, adjusting without complaint. Same route.
Same time.
Same quiet street just before the town fully woke up. To most people, it looked ordinary. A child walking her dogs before school. A habit. A routine. Something small enough not to question. Until it wasn't. 7 former Navy SEALs, living in different parts of the country, all felt the same jolt the first time they saw her. Not recognition. Instinct. Because what they were seeing wasn't a casual walk. It was a formation. One they hadn't seen since deployments where mistakes cost lives. 2 dogs ahead. 2 behind. 1 on each flank. 1 drifting in slow rotation, adjusting spacing at corners, driveways, blind spots. The girl wasn't leading them. She was the center of gravity. She looked about 6. Maybe 7. Small for her age. Serious. Jacket zipped high even when the weather didn't demand it. No phone. No headphones. No distractions. Her hands held the leashes loosely, not because she lacked control, but because she didn't need to exert it. The dogs moved when she moved, stopped when she stopped. At intersections, they shifted positions with quiet precision, never tangling, never hesitating. Neighbors noticed without admitting it. Curtains moved. Porch lights flicked off a second too late. People told themselves stories because stories were easier than questions. Foster child. Military family. Temporary situation. Nobody asked why no adult ever accompanied her. Nobody asked why the unpaved path near the old base perimeter stayed mysteriously clear year-round. At the end of the route, she always stopped at the same place. A small dock facing the water. Exactly 5 minutes. 1 dog sat. The others formed a loose arc behind her, backs to the town, eyes outward. Then, without a word, they turned and walked back the way they came. Same timing. Same order. Same silence. Only once did someone try to speak to her. A man new to the neighborhood, coffee in hand, smiling too close. The girl didn't react. 1 dog did. It didn't lunge. Didn't growl. It simply shifted, placing itself between the man and the child. The man stopped smiling. He never approached again. What most people never realized was that this wasn't a walk.
It was a system.
And systems like this don't exist unless someone built them on purpose. Her name appeared incorrectly in 3 databases. Birth records incomplete. Medical files fragmented. School enrollment delayed without explanation. Officially, she was a clerical oversight. Unofficially, she was something else entirely. Because before the coastal house near the restricted grid went quiet, 2 people lived there who knew how to disappear without leaving a trail. Lieutenant Commander Elena Ward. Chief Warrant Officer Daniel Cross. Navy SEALs. Not married on paper. Not assigned together officially. But their deployment paths overlapped too often to be coincidence. Joint extractions. Counterlogistics operations. Off-record assignments disguised as humanitarian support. They weren't frontline heroes. They were fixers. The kind sent in after mistakes were buried, not announced. They found something they weren't supposed to. A pattern connecting relief shipments to armed groups months later. Serial numbers scrubbed. Manifests altered. Equipment reappearing where it shouldn't. Elena reported it through internal channels. Daniel followed up through a contact he trusted. Both were told, separately, to stop asking questions. Their access changed. Their assignments rotated. Then came the quiet removal from active lists. They went home and stopped pushing. Instead, they started preparing. Not escape. Not exposure. Preservation. Their daughter never existed on paper because paper could be seized. They trained the dogs slowly, carefully, not to attack, not to hunt, to maintain formation, to respond to disruption, to protect without drawing attention. 7 retired military K-9s, each with a different role, bonded not to command, but to routine. When the accident came, it was clean. Training flight. Equipment failure. No survivors. No ceremony. Within a day, the house was cleared. Digital records vanished. The town forgot faster than it should have. But the system didn't stop. Every morning before sunrise, the dogs moved. And the girl moved with them, because she'd been taught that mornings mattered.
She didn't know why.
She only knew the steps, the pauses, the places where she waited. She believed it was important, and that belief was enough. The design was simple. Visibility, without explanation. A child in public, every day, impossible to remove quietly. As long as she walked, anyone watching had to wait. Waiting cost money. Waiting created risk. And risk was the one thing the people her parents had angered could not afford. The system didn't need encryption. It didn't need backups. It only needed consistency. And for a long time, it worked exactly as intended. Until the people trained to recognize systems like this began to notice. They didn't find each other. They recognized the same thing from different angles. One saw spacing. Another noticed timing. Another recognized a scar on a Belgian Malinois that had vanished years earlier after a handler died on a misfiled operation. None of them spoke at first. Speaking would have meant acknowledgement. And acknowledgement meant responsibility. 7 men.
Different lives now.
Bad knees. Quiet apartments. Jobs that didn't ask questions. But the reflex remained. They adjusted their mornings. Chose routes that intersected hers by accident. Watched without watching. Because once you see a system like this, you don't interfere. You protect it. They never discussed taking her in. Never considered official channels. That would have broken everything her parents built. Instead, they did what they knew best. They removed friction. A construction delay here. A rerouted delivery truck there. A cyclist gently redirected. No orders. No hierarchy. Just alignment. The girl never noticed.
She didn't need to.
Her job was to walk. Their job was to make sure nothing interrupted it. The first failure came quietly. She was late one morning. When she appeared, she was pale. Feverish. Her steps uneven. The dogs compensated, but not perfectly. One paused too long. Another broke position to check her. The system bent. A truck approached too fast at an intersection. One of the men stepped into the street, phone raised, pretending to film. The truck slowed. The girl crossed safely, never knowing why the road obeyed her. 2 blocks later, she stopped coughing so hard she had to sit. The dogs closed around her, not defensive, but worried. That was the moment one of the men crossed the line. He knelt just outside the ring and spoke softly, telling her she was doing fine. Just a little farther. She nodded, not fully understanding, but trusting the voice. That night, something shifted. Far away, old networks stirred. Quiet checks resumed. Not action. Observation. Because the system had shown vulnerability. 3 days later, a woman arrived with a badge and a clipboard. Routine welfare check. Polite. Perfectly timed. The dogs judged her before the door opened. The men didn't threaten her. They didn't argue. They simply stood where they were, together, visible, unmovable. The woman left. She never returned. From that day on, the watchers tightened their orbit. Not closer to the girl, closer to the world around her. Because now they knew how close the line really was. The system didn't end with a confrontation. It ended the way it was designed to. Quietly. Gradually. Without announcement. As the girl grew, the walks shortened. The dogs relaxed their spacing. One lagged behind without correction. Another trotted ahead, curious again. The rigid precision softened into habit. The men noticed and adjusted. They arrived later. Watched from farther away. Let the town fill in the gaps. The threat hadn't vanished. It had simply moved on, discouraged by time, cost, and attention it couldn't control. One morning, 6 months after the clipboard incident, the girl didn't come out. Not because she was sick. Not because she was afraid. Because it was time. She had school farther inland now. Friends. A different life. The dogs slept past dawn. No one forced them up. Across town, 7 men checked their watches at the same moment. None called anyone. None met afterward. There was nothing left to hold together. Years passed. The girl never learned the truth. She wasn't meant to. She remembered salt air mornings, the sound of paws on wet pavement, the feeling that silence could be safe. The dogs aged and died one by one, each buried without ceremony. The last sat by the door every morning long after he went blind, waiting for a walk that no longer existed. She moved on, built a life, but habits lingered. She still walked early, still crossed streets carefully, still felt calm when routines held and uneasy when they broke. Sometimes, when she sensed eyes watching from a distance, she slowed instead of panicking. Not afraid, just aware. She never knew 7 men once shaped their lives around her mornings. She never knew her parents had traded truth for time. She never knew a system had been built to keep her untouched by never explaining itself. And that was the point. Because the strongest protections don't announce themselves. They don't leave records. They don't demand recognition. They simply exist long enough to let someone grow past the danger that once surrounded them. Same route. Every morning. Until it wasn't needed anymore.